The unending curse of the Appalachians. Soldiers lost forever in the Pacific, still reaching out to home. This isn't some ghost tale. This is the chilling reality of what unfolded when men marched off to war and their families wouldn't release their grip. Deep within the eastern Kentucky mountains, where fog wraps the valleys like a burial cloth and the outside world seems a faint echo, sits the tiny settlement of Hollow Creek. 47 souls in 1982. Yet the tale truly starts 40 years prior, in the spring of 1942, as America plunged into World War II. For 6 generations the Mlin family had rooted themselves in these hills, coal miners, farmers, folks who placed more faith in the soil than in strangers. When draft papers reached Hollow Creek, 5 young men were summoned to duty. Among them stood brothers Thomas and William Mlin, both just into their 20s, built like oxen, carrying the unmistakable pale blue eyes that marked every branch of the Mlin line. Their mother, Elalina Mlin, a stern figure with iron-gray hair scraped tightly back, watched from the porch of the weathered family cabin as her boys ready to depart. April rain pounded the tin roof. Her work-hardened hands clutched the railing until knuckles bleached white. "You'll return," she declared. Not a wish, an order. Thomas, the elder, kissed his wife Sarah farewell. Sarah, his second cousin, a marriage wholly ordinary in Hollow Creek where the bloodlines had long been narrowing. Their 3 young children, none yet 5, clung to her faded dress. The smallest, a daughter named Martha, bore that same eerie pale stare common to all Mlin offspring. William had no wife yet, though the whole valley knew he was promised to his first cousin Ruth upon his return, an arrangement set since childhood. Ruth lingered in the doorway, 17, her belly already rounding with William's child, a secret shielded from the draft board. On a bleak morning the brothers departed. All 42 residents of Hollow Creek, bound by blood, some ties closer than others, gathered along the dirt track leading from the valley. The Mlin lineage, if drawn, resembled less a tree than a knotted vine, branches curling back into themselves across generations. No one in Hollow Creek challenged it. It was simply their way. The mountains sheltered them. The outer world was treacherous, filled with folk who couldn't comprehend their customs. Here they felt secure. Here they preserved the blood undiluted. Thomas and William never reached the front lines. Sent to the Pacific, in November 1943 identical telegrams arrived, both missing in action, presumed lost after their transport ship came under attack near the Solomon Islands. No remains recovered. No definitive proof of death. Elalina Mlin rejected it outright. "They're coming home," she repeated to anyone who'd hear. "I feel them. They call to me." The valley rallied behind her sorrow. They understood. In Hollow Creek, family wasn't merely vital, it was everything. It was all they possessed. And the Mlins dominated the valley, nearly every household linked to them by marriage or kinship. Sarah, now Thomas's widow, returned to the main Mlin cabin with her 3 children. Ruth bore William's son, named William Jr., though known to all as Little Will. The boy carried those pale Mlin eyes, and something more, quietly noted by the local doctor, himself tied to the Mlins by marriage, in his private notes, slight webbing between the fingers, a trait appearing more often among Hollow Creek's young. But Elalina's mourning twisted into something far darker. "They're trying to find their way back," she confided to Sarah one winter night in 1944. The 2 women sat by the fire, the cabin's only heat against the biting cold. Outside, 3 feet of snow muffled the valley. "I hear Thomas calling your name in the night. Don't you hear him?" Sarah's hands shook as she patched a shirt once worn by her husband. "Mama Eleanor, Thomas is gone." "No." The older woman's voice snapped sharp. "They're lost, searching for home. We must guide them. We must hold the family firm until they return. We must keep the blood pure. What you're about to learn will shatter everything you believed about the darkest secrets buried in America's remote pockets." Victory came in Europe in the winter of 1945, then in the Pacific. The war ended. Men from nearby towns marched home to parades and joy. In Hollow Creek only wind through barren branches broke the silence, alongside Elalina Mlin's unwavering claim that her sons still lived. They're prisoners somewhere, she proclaimed at Sunday gatherings, but they'll find the path back. And when they do, they must recognize their home, recognize their blood. What followed would shape Hollow Creek for the next 40 years. As matriarch of the valley's largest clan, Elalina wielded immense sway. She persuaded Sarah that honoring Thomas meant preserving his line undiluted. Sarah was just 26, still fertile. Your children need a father, Elalina urged. And Thomas's brother James remains unmarried. It's the only way to carry Thomas's legacy forward. James Mlynn, barely 19 when peace arrived, had escaped the draft by age. He resembled Thomas strikingly, same sharp features, same pale gaze, same sturdy frame. No accident, Mlynn men had wed cousins and nieces so long that traits had locked in place. Sarah resisted initially, but in Hollow Creek Elalina's will was unbreakable. The community endorsed the match. It kept kin together. It guarded the bloodline. In spring 1946 Sarah wed James in a quiet rite inside the same cabin that had seen her marry Thomas. Her 3 bewildered children stood silently beside her. Within a year she was pregnant again. Ruth, William's widow, faced identical pressure. Only 20, with a toddler who'd never known his father, she was soon paired with another Mlynn cousin, Daniel, spared service by a heart murmur the doctor privately linked to generations of close unions. The pattern spread through Hollow Creek. Widows took brothers, cousins, uncles as husbands. The valley folded tighter inward. Elalina's reasoning was simple, and all accepted it. When Thomas and William return, they'll see we held the family strong, that we allowed no outsiders to taint our blood. By 1950 every child born in the valley carried Mlynn blood at least twice, often 3 or 4 times over. The lineage had sealed into a perfect loop. The doctor's hidden journal, uncovered years later, sketched a grim portrait. Webbed fingers grew commonplace. Heart defects appeared. One infant girl arrived with eyes so pale they seemed nearly white, pupils sluggish to light. Intellectual impairments rose steadily, children slow to speak, unable to master simple skills. Yet Elalina explained it all away. It's because we're special, she assured anxious mothers. The Mlynn blood runs pure. These are gifts. When Thomas and William come home, they'll see we safeguarded our strength. Isolated and indoctrinated, the valley believed her. In 1952 Sarah bore her 7th child, her 4th with James. The boy emerged with a cleft palate so deep he struggled to nurse. The doctor, himself now showing inherited tremors, did what he could. The child lived, but speech would forever elude him clearly. What shall we name him? James asked. Elalina answered instantly, Thomas, for when his true father returns. Sarah cradled her deformed newborn and wept, yet obeyed. Ruth's path proved even bleaker. For children in 6 years with Daniel, 3 bore profound delays. Little Will, William's true son, grew into an odd, silent boy who spent hours gazing at the ridges as though expecting someone. He's watching for his father, Elalina insisted. He knows William is coming. Sunday gatherings turned stranger still. Elalina led prayers not pleading for the soldiers' return but thanking God for guiding them safely homeward. She spoke of Thomas and William as if they'd merely stepped out briefly. They call to us, she'd say, pale eyes sweeping over descendants whose bodies revealed the cost of inbreeding, yet she saw only proof of purity. I hear them in dreams. They're proud we kept the blood clean. By 1955 the wider world had surged ahead. Korea's war had ended. Elvis echoed faintly on rare radios. But in Hollow Creek time remained frozen in 1943, locked in Elalina's delusion, etched into the frail bodies of children born to parents too closely kin. The 1960s swept America with civil rights, cultural upheaval, challenges to tradition. In Hollow Creek nothing shifted save the worsening genetic toll. By 1965 Elalina, 83, stooped and frail, still ruled absolutely. Her mind frayed, yet her fixation sharpened. She claimed nightly talks with her sons, receiving directives on preserving purity. Sarah, 46, appeared decades older, exhausted from 9 births to her deceased husband's brother. Only 6 survived infancy. Of those, just 3 could live unaided. The rest needed lifelong care, minds forever childlike, bodies scarred by shared DNA. Little Will, now 22, became Evelynina's newest fixation. "He's the perfect Mlin," she proclaimed. "Pure blood, his father's son. He must carry the line forward." What she orchestrated next would mark Hollow Creek's darkest chapter. Evelynina demanded Little Will wed his half-sister, Ruth's daughter by Daniel, named Evelynina after her grandmother. The girl was barely 16, among the few appearing outwardly normal, though crippled by anxiety and never having left the valley. "It's what William would want," Evelynina told Ruth. "Keep the blood pure. Keep the family strong." Ruth, shattered by years of birthing afflicted children under Evelynina's reign, consented. The community, now 38 souls, all intertwined, all ensnared in the same genetic spiral, voiced no protest. Young Evelynina attempted escape, reaching the main road before kin retrieved her. In Hollow Creek there was nowhere to flee. All were family. All were complicit. The marriage occurred in spring 1966. Little Will, scarcely verbal and delayed like many siblings, and young Evelynina, weeping through the vows, were bound by the elders' decree. Their first child, a girl born in 1967, survived only 3 days, internal organs too malformed. Their second, a boy in 1969, displayed deformities so extreme that even the aged, Parkinson-shaken doctor could not mask his dismay. "This must end," he pleaded to Evelynina, his own aunt by marriage. "The children suffer. We're destroying them before birth." Her reply chilled, "Thomas and William test us. We must prove worthy of their return, show we'll never corrupt the blood." That night the doctor fled Hollow Creek forever. By 1970 only 29 residents remained. Some families had slipped away, unable to bear further suffering. Yet the core Mlins stayed, bound by delusion, conditioning, and nowhere else to go. Children born in the 1960s and 70s embodied genetic collapse, heart defects, cleft palates, club feet, absent fingers, deafness, blindness, intellectual disability, seizures. The catalogue lengthened with each birth. Still Evelynina framed it as purity, strength, worthiness. In 1975 Sarah died at 56, appearing ancient, consumed by decades of childbearing she could not shield from inherited doom. James had preceded her 2 years earlier, felled by heart failure. 6 of her 9 children outlived her, each impaired, many already producing offspring with close kin, continuing the spiral. Ruth followed in 1977, released at last by death, leaving 7 children and 19 grandchildren, nearly all touched by genetic affliction. "I need you to do something right now." Type these exact words in the comments. The blood remembers everything. Do it now, because what follows proves some sins reverberate through generations, inscribed not in history but in the DNA of the blameless. Evelynina Mlin passed on January 15, 1980, aged 97, still claiming her sons were moments from walking up the mountain path to behold what she had preserved. Her final whisper to the few at her bedside, "Tell them I kept it pure. Tell them I allowed no pollution of our blood." Her death should have lifted the spell over Hollow Creek. Yet generational wounds do not vanish with one matriarch. The harm was etched into 3 generations' genes. In 1982 a Kentucky social worker finally reached the valley, spurred by a teacher's letter after encountering a Hollow Creek child at a clinic. What she discovered horrified the state. 23 souls remained. Youngest 3, eldest 68. Only 7 could live independently. The rest endured layered genetic disorders, profound disability, deformity, chronic illness demanding constant care. The family tree she tried to map resembled a snarl, parents who were also second cousins, siblings wed, uncles fathering nieces' children. In Evelynina's cabin lay a ledger recording every birth, marriage, death since 1943. Beside each she had tallied Mlin blood percentage, treating people like prized breeding stock. Pure 4-generation Mlin descendants earned gold stars, any trace of outside blood, black X's. X's were rare. She had been mercilessly thorough. Also found, dozens of letters from Thomas and William, penned in 1943 training camps. In them the brothers spoke of returning, not to perpetuate Ella-Lenina's vision, but to bring new ideas, perhaps relocate families to cities offering broader futures. Thomas wrote Sarah, "I love you and the kids beyond words. But sometimes I feel we've shut ourselves away too long up here. I've met good men from everywhere. Maybe after the war we can give our children bigger chances." Ella-Lenina had concealed these letters. She built her delusion on the inverse of her son's true wishes, ruining generations upon a fabrication. Worst was the military record. Thomas and William died unmistakably in 1943 when a Japanese sub torpedoed their ship, 217 lost. Detailed accounts existed. Deaths confirmed 1944. Benefits paid. Ella-Lenina had accepted the money, cashed the checks. She knew, and used their deaths to forge her nightmare realm. The revelation struck survivors like a hammer blow. Every hardship, every afflicted child, every forced union had rested on a deliberate lie. The state stepped in. Children removed from danger. Medical aid provided. Genetic guidance offered where comprehension allowed. Hollow Creek as a community ceased. Yet genetic harm cannot be undone. Ella-Lenina's descendants would bear the marks lifelong. Some conditions would travel further still, an echo of terror rippling into unborn generations. In 1985, a University of Kentucky geneticist published an anonymized paper on the case, illustrating the peril when a population isolates utterly and harmful recessive surface unchecked. Seeking purity, the Mlins achieved its antithesis, concentrating every flaw. Today Hollow Creek as a settlement is gone. Cabins swallowed by forest. The access road eroded away. Nature erases the traces. But survivors carry it within. In 2010 a filmmaker located some removed in 1982. Most declined to appear. One woman, 43, granddaughter of Sarah and James, thus also great-niece to Thomas, spoke anonymously. "People ask if I hate Ella-Lenina," she said softly. But it wasn't only her. Every day everyone in Hollow Creek chose to continue. Every marriage, every birth, every time they saw a suffering child and chose another, that was choice. She paused, voice thickening. "I've had 2 children. Both carry genetic conditions. Both will suffer for decisions made a century ago. I had my tubes tied after the second. I couldn't risk passing it further. The curse lives on. It's coded in my DNA, in my children's." Medical files confirm the toll. Of the 23 removed in 1982, 9 later died from inherited vulnerabilities. Of 14 survivors, only 5 reproduced. Their offspring show markedly elevated disorder rates. The curse of consanguinity outlives the final forced marriage. It lingers as a delayed genetic fuse. By 2018, popular DNA tests revealed deeper entanglement to scattered descendants. Assumed second cousins proved genetically half-siblings. One man learned he carried a rare recessive disorder, odds 1 in a million generally, 1 in 3 among Hollow Creek kin. He tested positive and chose childlessness. "That's Ella-Lenina's true curse," he posted in an online group. "Not ghosts. Biology. She packed so much shared DNA into so few that we're still paying. My grandmother fled 70 years ago, and I'm still settling the bill." The case, always pseudonymized, became textbook material. Genetic drift, founder effect, extreme inbreeding's cost. Students, researchers, anthropologists study it. For those who lived it, it is no case study, it is flesh, struggle, legacy. In 2023 the last of Ella-Lenina's own children died at 89, lifelong in care, mind forever childlike due to her parents' closeness. With her passing, the generation that knew Ella-Lenina's reign vanished. Later ones retain the stories, the pain, the genes. The small Hollow Creek cemetery endures faintly. Empty graves mark Thomas and William, prepared in 1944. Beside them lies Ella-Lenina. She kept the faith. She kept the family pure. Red spray paint now crosses it. She kept nothing but pain. The eternal Appalachian curse wasn't soldiers lost to war. It was a community prizing purity over well-being, isolation over diversity, one woman's delusion over humanity, turning it into generational genetic ruin. Thomas and William did call home, in letters dreaming of wider horizons, of opportunity for their children beyond the hills. Elenina refused that call. She forged her own answer. 3 generations paid in suffering, disability, shortened lives, unrealized potential. If you've stayed until the end, you've witnessed one of America's bleakest hidden histories. This is no invention. This is what closes when communities seal themselves off, when diversity is traded for supposed purity, when one obsession becomes collective nightmare. If you truly watched all the way, comment, "I watched until here," so I can find you and know who truly appreciates these stories. Like if this shook you and made you consider the true price of isolation and inbreeding. Share with someone who needs reminding that the worst curses aren't paranormal, they're the ones we visit upon ourselves and our descendants through ignorance and fixation. Subscribe because these accounts must be told. These lessons must be absorbed. And the victims of generational trauma deserve remembrance, not as data points, but as people who endured for one woman's warped vision of purity.